Okay. Well, thank you everyone for joining us here. We're excited to share that Marina will be leading the conversation on the topic of sacred womb, and I will pass the mic to her. Thank you, Marina, for joining us.
Oh, thank you for being here. I'm really glad to do this talk. This topic is so hot. Um, I think that there is blood all over the place. It's a bloody mess. And there are some things to talk about that go deeper than just this mess that we are in. How did we get into this mess? How can we fix it? And there is a lot of dialogue. And so I'm going to update you on some of the dialogue that is going on and give you some tools. And I'm also going to go right into the sacred womb to go into a different kind of dialogue, which interfaces with the blood of life and the sacred womb. So I hope that you're ready. Here we go. This is all about sacred womb, the blood of life. And our what's come up since the last couple of weeks was very distressing and probably triggering for a lot of people. It certainly triggered me. I did have an AV, an abortion, early abortion. I think that was 1973. And the law hadn't passed. The federal law passed in 1975. So it was very hard to find a provider. I was in nursing school, by the way. And I had to drive 11 hours to get to my closest provider, 11 hours. So when this came down a few weeks ago, it triggered me. It reminded me of how long and how much you have to hustle to try and get your choice. At that point in my life, let me tell you, I was a student. I tried to work as a student and go to nursing school, but the overlap was when it came to having shifts in the hospital and the changing shifts and the scheduling and all of that. I had to let go of a job. So I was fairly poor. I had some of my relatives helping me out a little bit, but it wasn't sufficient. And I never thought I would have an abortion. I never did. But then I didn't think a child at that moment in my life was a secure thing to do for that child or for myself. I had to finish my career. I had to support this child. Yeah. So I don't know if you got triggered, but I know many, many have, especially those in my age. I am in my 70s, and that lived through the 60s and the 70s. There's many stories of what happened before this law. The law was never implemented that well. Anyway, so later on in my life, I worked in Planned Parenthood, and you had to surveillance to go into work because they were bombing and shooting, bombing the clinics and shooting the practitioners. Yeah. So here we are. But there is a lot more. There is a lot more. In after midwifery school, I was asked by a full-blooded Lakota medicine man to help in bringing forth the medicine of woman. Now, that happened in a sweat. And it happened to happen after I did 3 days of going in the mountains. I did it because I had an ectopic pregnancy and I wanted a child a lot. And I waited a long time. My fallopian tube burst and I still wanted that child. Yeah. And I was already a midwife. Yeah. So, but anyway, I had surgery. They had to remove my fallopian tube. The tube had increased to the size of my arm. And the doctor said, almost died. And she was my collaborating physician. And all of this happened while I was working and carrying on. And I was going to carry this baby. Oh, yeah. So I have been an advocate all these years. Anyway, because of all of the circumstances in my own body. Yeah. So I already was doing GYN and birth and all of this, and this happens to my body. And so after a few months, I take some time off, I go to the mountains and do some fasting. And I thought I have to rebirth myself into this, and I have to trust bodies. I have to trust my body. I have to trust other people's bodies. I have to trust that the heart of their choices is valid. And it is difficult. It is difficult, this whole thing about sexuality, reproduction, wanted or unwanted pregnancies, the kind of family planning or contraception that we can obtain, when can we obtain it, what choices do we have, what choices can we make? I mean, yeah, it's a bloody mess. Yeah. So I was asked in a ceremonial inside a sweat lodge by a medicine man to help in bringing forth the medicine of woman. I was flabbergasted that day when that was asked, and I didn't know what to say. I just say thank you. And it took me 2 weeks thinking about it. And then I decided, well, I'm already a midwife. I already am a nurse practitioner. I do this and I do that. Could there be more? Well, I said yes. And I found out that there was a lot more. Because we had to go to the soul. It's body and soul. It's body and soul. Yeah. And this, it doesn't matter what equipment you have. This is about humanity and the birth of people, and the sexuality and the pleasure of people. Yeah. So it's about the soul. So I want to, before we go too far, I want you to take a breath and tune in. Tune in to the earth underneath your feet. Just for a moment. Tune into your womb, or your womb space, your pelvis. Tune into your heart. And relax your being into that. Deep inside the earth is her blood, her magma. And we have blood. Some of us shed blood. 800 million people shed blood every day on planet Earth. Well, I went about teaching about natural fertility awareness. Then I started circles. And these circles were with professionals, mainly midwives, sometimes with other type of folks, families, etc. But with a midwife, I want to tell you. And I did these circles in the United States and Europe, in Asia, in many places in the world. And the circles were about how was your experience with your first menstruation? Did you know anything? Well, that's when one person said, I got a smack in the face. Wow. Mainly for me was that I didn't get much information, just like blood is going to come out and here's bad. Oh, okay. And I can barely remember exactly being menstruating during my teenage years. But that seemed really pretty good compared to the stories that were being told. And those were midwives. So I want to encourage you to get with someone you trust. Share your story about your first blood. You can do this with people that bleed or don't bleed. It doesn't matter. Somebody that has the heart to hear your story. Sorry? I want to hear your story. Anyway, and then we kept on going a little bit. I did quite a bit of those circles, learned a lot. And then the next question that comes was like, what about the first sexuality experience? How was that? How much do you know? How good did it go? What went on with that? Wow. And my conclusion on that is that we send kids to go out in the streets somewhere and figure it out. I think that we're still doing that. In the school system, there is a lot of fear still, or just don't do it. But here are your parts. Are we talking about what is healthy sensuality? I said sensuality. We are orgasmic bodies. We're sensual and we are sexy. And I have been pushing the educational system to teach about this, and I have been rejected a bunch of times. I'm still trying. And I think we're getting closer to it. So, what is that experience with your intimacy and pleasure? And so, a lot of the experience were in that super. Teenagers have told me that too. I have done some of the circles with teenagers, and they say, "Oh, all that like chasing me around, this, and then boom, it's over. And then what? What's that about?" I didn't. A lot of people don't experience a positive sexual encounter until later on. The lucky ones, the later on, they learn more about their bodies. I have also talked to males about it, people with penises, let's say. And there is not just the ones that have vaginas. This happens to all, that there is not any information and they don't know how to come together in a pleasurable, heartfelt way. Even if they kind of intend to do that, they don't have the skills. They don't even know how that whole thing works. Why are we not talking about that? So in the years of practicing, eventually my age gets to that place of menopause, and there are so many questions and stories, and there is people who haven't really enjoyed themselves sexually and now are having further troubles with their equipment. And the equipment, right? Reproductive organs and all of that, that exercise called Kegel. I do a yogini Kegel. You want to try it with me? Here you go. Take a deep breath and exhale, relax yourself. And take a deep breath. And as you inhale, bring those pelvic muscles, your bottom, the perineum, up. Hold, 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 hold. And exhale, relaxing it. I am calling the perineum, the place in between the penis and the anus, just as much as I'm calling it from the vagina to the anus. So the pelvic floor is both for anyone, for everybody, because it all descends, no matter what equipment you got, it all descends. So squatting is good for everybody, and doing either the aerobic type kegels, which is which, or the yogini marina type kegel, which is breathing, holding, and releasing. If you're preparing for birth, releasing wide and slowly. If you are tightening up, you say, boom, slight release, not too much. You don't want to expand too much. You want to lift. So there is healthy words that have not been spoken, not even by us. And we are the key. We, yes, the midwives. We are the key. We are the ones most connected to our communities. And so that means the people. And we are most connected to the medical system. So we are the link in between the two. And I have great hope for us, because this bloody mess can be turned around. And it is time for us to turn it around. It is all about choice and autonomy. And I want to tell you about different associations that are collaborating in different ways, and hopefully with each other. Let me see. Here's this little picture. Okay. So I'm going to start with this one. Universities. And universities have put out statements. And there is a doctor at UCSF, Dr. Audrey. I compliment this doctor, an obstetrician that is putting a both together for the panhandle to do contraceptive and abortion care. And there are projects, more projects going out of UCSF. So investigating to that, because UCSF is getting active. Some of the universities, I got some messages from some of the students saying that, oh, they didn't react correctly. And the students have written letters to the directors to get it together. See, this is not about you. What is about you is that you need to care for people. You, the midwife, you, the health professional. It is not necessarily about putting your belief system in another person. Now you can be honest about your belief system so that people that want particular care don't go to you. Okay, that's cool. But you can't mandate everybody to believe the way you do. Not at the federal level, and not at the private level or community clinic level I did work in one community clinic where the nurse, anyone that came to talk about a possible abortion, we didn't even do abortions there on this particular one, but we did family planning, contraception, and there was a contraception fails sometimes, or stuff happens. And when the client came, she was sat at a chair for hours on end. It took me a few days of watching that to realize what was going on. And it was one of the nurses that will sit her there for hours. Unbelievable. Yeah. So I right here, WSCF is the World's Student Christian Federation. They have a website, World Student Christian Federation. And I gone to the last few months to check them out. So what are they saying? They are saying that the Christians who are very popular are those who are threatening society with the abortions and making it difficult for those who want to make that choice. And this body, this student body, and which has a lot of different types of religion, actually, different sorts, joining in. It's world level. Are talking about supporting the integrity of the person to have their own relationship with the God of their hearts. And then that they, the Christians, need to support and come forth as supporting the choice of that particular person and the relationship with God that they have, and to help them get to safe care, help them also in the post-abortion treatment. I was flabbergasted. I didn't know that was going on. So I encourage you to check them out. Yeah. There is the Nurse Practitioner Women Health, have made a fabulous national organization here in the United States, has made a fabulous statement. ICM, which is the International Confederation of Midwives, have come out with a statement and points out to what is happening in the United States and encourages the world over on freedom of choice and the service that we provide. So in the service that we provide, by the way, one of the things to learn is how to size uterus from a non-pregnant uterus into very, very early pregnancy, into the difference. Sometimes, of course, I trained when they weren't really sonos available, so we all had to develop that skill. But sometimes that comes really handy. And depending on where you are going to get involved in care, if you can hone into those skills, it would be great. And ACNM was one of the orgs that put out one of the first statements. It reads really well. And actually today, ACNM sent out a letter with, they have placed in the website a whole list of resources. So is midwife.org to get to the ACNM resources on abortions. Plus, read their statement, it's quite good. Then I want to talk about COMS project. Yes, COMS project. COMS project.org. This is the hottest, to me, the hottest reproductive system group in the United States. There are folks from different states coming together, but it runs out of Atlanta, Georgia. And they are making fabulous statements and collecting statistics on the field of the population in the United States. And it is more than 50% that folks want choices. And when they were doing interviews, different people take different projects, okay? So this was a large project. When they were doing interviews, some people didn't even realize that Roe versus Wade was up and then anything was going to change. They didn't even know that, okay? So like, and a lot of people didn't even believe it. I mean, and some people actually which wouldn't make that choice, they say, still feel like the freedom to make choices is important. So I have some of the information already. Lari has it. She'll paste it for us on the language to use if you're hot on the subject of the legislature and that kind of thing, about choices. It's choices and autonomy. It's also dignity. The dignity of the people we care for. We have to respect who they are. And we have to give them good care. Okay, and so I am getting to where I want to inspire you further. I want to inspire you further with this. Period.org. Period.org is a reproductive justice organization. They're based in Oregon, and they're going worldwide, but specifically United States. And there is another large organization also coming out of the UK. They're hot on the trail of the blood. They are calling the period poverty. And why is that? Poverty. The problem is that we have been shaming the blood for a long time. And the products are expensive or unavailable. And there are populations who then quit school and are shamed from that first drop. So if we have shame and we don't get to learn about the pleasure of the body, if we're lucky, and I think almost every 5th and 6th grade, I go to some of those classes to see what is being taught, are getting information about the body, but a lot of it also is about fear. You're going to get a disease. And at the time that I went, which was the beginning of this century in Florida, um, they were recommending abstinence so that you don't get pregnant and you don't get these diseases. So it's all wrapped around fear. I didn't hear anything about pleasure. I didn't hear anything about beauty. I didn't hear anything about honoring each other and loving each other and many possibilities that are in our sexual self and sensual self. Yeah. One of the other things then past this chain of the blood then is that, oh yeah, the removal of a pregnancy with coat hangers and other methodology, jump up and down and Google come out and do this and take these herbs and do that and this and that. And through all of this, especially some that didn't even know exactly that pregnancy happened or how did it happen. I had one midwife, dear midwife friend, who told me that her mom, which was very avant-garde at that point, told her, yeah, that, you know, you get a penis and the vagina together and this and that, and you get pregnant, but shouldn't happen until you are married. Well, she got pregnant at 15 and she was pissed off at her mom because she said, hey, she told me that. What was it about it? But I did it and I wasn't married, but I got pregnant. We are not saying it correctly to the kids. She didn't understand what that meant. She thought that getting pregnant is the part of the being married thing. But all the other stuff she was doing had nothing to do with it. Okay. And this is what we're telling our the ones who have periods. What about the others, the ones who have the sperm and whatever? What are we telling them? You know, period.org is doing a whole drive into the school system to educate and to have products available. The state of Hawaii just passed the law that every school should have menstrual help for any menstruator in the school system. And they have products. There are, it was Iowa, I think, but for sure Portland, the state of Washington, Oregon, now has no taxes on tampons. So there is a drive to eliminate taxation on products. There is a drive to get menstrual help in the schools, and there is a drive to educate. And now to really release the right education, we have to re-educate the educators. And so today I heard from the ACNM that they're very interested. I put out a little tickle to the ACNM to see if they're interested in doing a day of the pad, which is going to happen in October, to collaborate with the period movement in helping the communities to embrace this sacred womb. We all came through a sacred womb, and it is time for us to learn, to share, to take a different angle on who we are. The midwives, and you, the midwife of the future, have a great opportunity through this bloody mess to get involved in taking it further. I bless you. On that is the blood of life. Let's take a breath together And feel your heart and your womb, the connection to the earth underneath you, the connection to your ancestors, this river of blood. And if you will be with me, take a breath and exhale it into the world so that it resonates deep inside, because we can change this together. Thank you and cheers.